And recording. I know I did I haven't posted a video in a while. I figured I should just because I do have the free time. Um, I haven't just because I've actually gone really gung ho into working on my own stuff, and uh, this album that I've for months and months have been like, oh, I need to master it. I need to master it, and just didn't have the time and kept getting distracted. Well, I finished it. It's done. So I'm just waiting on my art guy, who actually, funny enough, like contacted me earlier today with like a preliminary sketch and was asking for like details of what I wanted, uh, because he had just finished with his school stuff because he's going to school for like additional things in relation to that. But yeah, he finally had time to like work on it, and so hopefully that'll be done sometime soon. Because at this point now, since I'm done with the music, I'm just waiting on him to be able to release it. And in the meantime, on Sunday, I actually just randomly was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna sit down. Oh, camera shifted. Um, and just did like a video. I did a music video for one of them, so that I've got that in the bank. I could do more, I think, but like I don't like to sit on the material. I like for it to kind of process it in the moment, and I said that in a weird way. I like to process it in the moment. So once I release something, then I focus on the next thing, then release that. Focus on the next thing, as opposed to just like bang, 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 bang. This is in the pipeline. This is in the pipeline. This is in the pipeline. Release, release, release. Because the world changes, your feelings change, and then once you have something in the pipeline, you're like, well, I don't really feel that way anymore. Or there's this other thing that happened that in the world that could add this shade of gray to it, so I could maybe no, 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 but it's done. No, it creates this weird uh, thought process where you're just kind of unhappy with it. So I'm more the kind of person that's just like, it's on the top of my head, poof, out of my mouth, out of my body. Let the world see it, or whatever. That because at that point you can't backtrack and be like, oh, my precious project, I have to perfect it. No, it's not ready. It's not ready. It's more just like loose, loose onto the world, and on to the next thing, and on to the next thing. So I'm at the process now where like since I do have time, I'm actually just going ahead and listening to the album on different speakers, which I've done already. But like again, time has passed. You reinterpret things when you hear them again. So that's one of those things that I don't know if enough people do. Because you got to think when you're creating stuff, you got the headphones on. You're hearing things in a very particular way on a particular system uh, with a particular quality, and you don't necessarily know how an audience might actually listen to it. Will they listen to it in their car? Will they listen to it on their phone speakers? On their laptop speakers? Are they going to put Spotify through their TV? Is it someone like me who just plugs their laptop into their amp and just listens to it that way? Or like there's varying degrees, varying ways that you can consume things. So I just recently bought some Bluetooth headphones. I got a cheap pair, just because my regular headphones that I usually use done. Uh, the wires always, yeah. So I figured Bluetooth. I'll do Bluetooth this time. But since I got a cheap one, I think it's more just for like talk, for regular phone calls, and I think there's a built-in microphone in it. So when I listen to the music in those, it's very low frequency, like very bass forward. So it's interesting hearing the rhythm section of the stuff I came up with on the Bluetooth headphones, as opposed to the other headphones I had that had the higher frequency range. So I was hearing more of the synth and guitar and less of the drum and bass. So, and then with the amp, you don't hear stereo. It's all coming out all together, so everything is more mixed, and it's more like a swell as opposed to like a car where you can arrange it to like the bass is back here, high frequencies are in the front, speakers like it's a different experience for everybody. And I don't know necessarily that enough people take that into account when they're creating stuff. Also, there's no point to anything that I'm saying right now. Everything's just coming off the top of my head. Um, you've probably seen me look up at my board a few times. I took a picture of it, sent it to myself so that I could get it here on the laptop. This is actually what it currently looks like. New album is going to be called Beyond the Pale. 18 tracks. Um, this is a cleaned up version of what it once was. Because initially I just put concepts up. Then eventually I give different names and then rearrange things in order to tell a narrative. And once I have that, each track then tells me what the other track is missing. So I had a guy tell me, let me get rid of that for a second. I had a guy tell me, a guy I used to work with, older dude, I think he's probably in like his 60s, that I should probably, that it might be a good idea to put out like single songs or like EPs and groups of small songs or something. But the way my mind works right now, the process I have is that at any given time when I'm feeling like, all right, I've got something to say or like I'm feeling a certain way, I just put out a general like rhythm or melody, work on it until it feels like it said something that I want it to say. And as I'm working on it, I'm just like, and again, even back when my band days, when I would uh, just practice with my buddies, whenever we happened upon like a groove or a riff that we liked, it was always just like, okay, what does this say? How does this make you feel? What should the title of the track be based off this emotion? And then once you have a title, then you can like funnel how it is the track is actually gonna sound, because like you're putting out the emotion first, the feeling that you want to get out. Then once you can name it, it's like what do they say? If there's a demon, if you know its name, you have power over it. That's how you trap it. Like there's power in names, because once you name something, then you know what it should be, what encompasses it, what needs to be involved to make it complete. And then once you line them up in a playlist, you say, oh, well, if this one's going to go into this one, then I should probably add an intro to this because it's kind of jarring the way they go into each other just now, or maybe instead of that, this last one, the one before, I should add an outro, and then or when you're listening to it, you're like, oh, these sound too similar, and there's like three of them in a row that sound exactly the same. So if that's the case, I think this one here could use a break with a B part that makes it that differentiates it from like so. Once you have them lined up, you're able to then distinguish like what is missing and what needs to be added in order to like build the levels of complexity and everything. And having the titles, you're just like I can build a narrative of what's the story of the album, like what is it that came out of me, what is it I'm trying to say. And if that's the case, have I said it in that? And if like you think of like a play with three acts and you're like, well, here's the beginning of it, there's the conflict, and here's the resolution. So do you have that in the narrative? And if you don't, how can you create that? It's that's the process I have. So instead of doing like a single song or an EP, like I'm still in the point of view where like I need like a list, like a big project, like an album. I think this is like an hour 21, hour 22 minutes, which is roughly the amount of time the other two albums were. I think like 117 and 120. But yeah, because I feel like a single. Hello? Yeah, there it is. I feel like a single thought. I don't know why it keeps doing that. I feel like a single thought or like a. It's kind of like a first draft. And I don't know necessarily that it would say everything it could say. Like a single thought is. It seems too simple. Like I need. This is the process I've been using. So this is kind of how I'm creating things, in which makes it so like I'll have blocks of time where like I'm very silent, but then once this is done, track week later, here's another track, here's another track, with that I could release them as singles or whatever, or on message boards or on whatever. Like I'll have like a stream of like content that I could just say, look at how everything I have, as opposed to just being like, here's this one track that I've worked on for like a week that I think is good, and it's out there. I don't know the point that I'm trying to make, other than to say that this will be out very soon. Once I get the art actually like done and like in my hands, or virtually in my hands, because like he'll email it to me. At that point, I think I'll give myself a week to have it released, so that I could at least like put up a couple of ads on my like Instagram and stuff, and just be like, "Hey, everybody, get ready! It's a coming." Uh, FYI, I should, if since I'm talking about myself and my music now, um, it's my channel, so I'm gonna. Expect to see a couple more videos of my own stuff. I'm likely gonna be putting those up on like a weekly basis in the near future. So there's gonna be a lot of Eye of the Mirage labeled stuff. As far as the sound of this album, I never know what to label my shit. Um, the previous two I put under the label of electronic and jazz, just because like I don't know what to classify it as, and since it's very like of my own mental state and just kind of like emotive, I classified it as jazz, even though like I know it's not like samba or like big band or like any of that kind of things that you would normally classify as jazz. This one, I have three songs that I've kind of retooled from when I would have practice with the guys. Like, what's that? That one, Fenris, used to be called Wolf. Uh, we performed it once at a bar, but guys didn't really necessarily want to be that heavy. So it was sort of abandoned, even though it was like one of my favorite songs. There's another one called Snake Oil that was never finished. So I finished it. It used to have lyrics, but I figured this entire album, I'm just going to go no lyrics. No lyrics at all. I thought about it. It just didn't fit. Then there's another one that used to be called Boneyard, which I have called renamed Golgotha. So, for a number of reasons. There's if you saw the let me pull this back up. Why not? So Beyond the Pale. I have a theme I've been going on. The first album was Echoes of Descent. Second one was called Gods and Monsters. This one is called Beyond the Pale. If you kind of take a look at the titles I have, Golgotha is the second track after Majesty, followed by Phantasm. And I think you can kind of gauge and understand maybe where I'm going with this. But a funny thing that happened is in looking through the titles that I came up with. This last year, I've been rewatching Star Trek Enterprise. Not Enterprise. What is it called? What's the one with Jean-Luc Picard? Next Generation. A surprising number of those track titles are episode titles from Star Trek Next Generation. I didn't mean to do that. It just sort of happened. And after I finished everything, like all the titles, at some point I just kind of noticed it and I was like, that's funny. That's funny. But yeah, the sound of this one, this whole album is very angular, very like jutting, like saw waves. There's a lot of ambient sounds, and in keeping with the tradition of the way I write, it sounds very robotic, and if you listen to it, it almost sounds like it's out of tune because of the specific note choices I have and of the scales that I use. I feel it's more interesting sounding that way. Also, I like the challenge of saying, well, everything that's popular is over here. What if I go over on this direction and use these note selections to try to tell a story? Also, the project name is Eye of the Mirage. What's a mirage? is something that you think it's there, but it's not actually. Now think about that from like a sonic perspective. Also, that hides any mistakes I make. uh, Everything's still being done just by me. Mm. When you're in a band, you have people, you have at least three, four, five people, or however many. Slipknot has nine. Uh, or had nine. I, um, but in that kind of atmosphere, you can bounce ideas off one another. You fall into a groove that everyone kind of likes. Everyone has input. If you specialize in, oh, I'm a very good drummer, I'm a very good guitarist, as opposed to someone like me who's just all right at guitar and not a good drummer and not good at anything else. But once you have like the Ableton set up in front of you, you're able to just write like using your mind. That's an interesting way to write music. Much, much different than like actually playing live. Because when you play live, like you're like, yeah, 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 energy, energy, yeah, 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 yeah. As opposed to like when you're mapping things out on a computer, you're like, okay, 2 bars here, 2 bars there. Okay, this instrument here. I'm missing this. I want an echo quality. Maybe this bass needs this. There's this more analytical take that you get into it. So again, this is very angular, and I know this isn't the best commercial or advertisement to be like, oh, it's gonna sound weird. For this particular album, I have embraced violins and orchestra sounds a lot more. And I do tend to record my guitars very off putting. Then EQ them in such a way that they sound really raw and like wrong. Because if everything else is going to be super electronic and clean, I want to like have the guitars sound really weird and out of place so that it creates this unsettling feeling. And also like I don't want things to sound pretty. I don't want things to sound clear because this is a state of mind at any given point, and you never think in like perfection. So like a story is never like I have a goal. Here are the steps I need to take in order to reach the goal, and I have accomplished it. That's not life. You almost never get what you want. And when you do, at the point you get it, you no longer want it. But you feel like you are on that road, so you have to finish. And you have to feel like the sense of accomplishment. Which again is why like I prefer being like state of mind. Oh, it's out. As opposed to just being like I'm going to work on this for 3 years until it's perfect. Because then at that point, you no longer feel that way. So every time you try to perfect it and add more complexity or like try to tell it better, well, if you don't feel that way anymore, then it's no longer authentic. And like authenticity usually has all those imperfections. So this is going to sound really weird when you listen to it, if you listen to it. But I'm actually pretty happy with this. It's a little bit more straightforward than the last two. More ambient, I think I said. God damn, this is a long video. So just be prepared for more of my personal content soon.